Hey man, what are you doing?
Shh, don't move.
And I wish I could be a scientist. I wanted to be one all my life. I don't know where to get started though.
I have a friend that might be able to help you.
I am the great Professor Squiggly-Doo! I hear that you need help with science.
Yes, I do need help. I need to know how to start.
Well, here are 3 easy steps. 1. Defracturize the modem on your computer.
Okay.
2. Create a quadratic equation to prevent any scientific anomalies.
That makes
3.
sense.
Find a scientific law and break it into a million pieces.
Thank you for your help. I feel so better now.
Go get him. So, how's your experiment going?
It's hard.
Try that.
It works!
Yeah.
Hi, and welcome back for episode number 2. We recently had a viewer send in a question. Patricia Landry states, "We are just starting out homeschooling and I have no idea where to begin and then where to go from there." So we know a lot of you moms and dads probably have been in that situation before, felt that way, absolutely had no idea where to even put your foot, a foot forward on homeschooling. So Julie and I are going to today talk about what we feel are some important first steps for anybody who's considering homeschooling. Julia, you want to start out with number 1?
I think the first thing is you have to know the laws in your state. Honestly, you can just get on the internet and Google the laws for your state. It's important to know what's required of you homeschooling, setting up your homeschooling, and what's required either whether it's monthly or yearly. You can contact your local school board and find out the requirements there. And there's always forums and organizations within your state and your city that will also help you.
Yeah, and I will leave some links below this video to the Homeschool Legal Defense Organization. That is probably would be my number 1 stop, to start there, because they can, depending on where you live, you can start with your state and find out what the legal requirements are going to be in your state, and then definitely contact the county that you live in. Chances are you're probably going to have to fill out an intent to homeschool, but we definitely want you to stay legal. So we think that's number 1. Know the laws in your state, be familiar with them, and make sure that you cross all your T's, dot all your I's legally first. So number 2, find and consult with other homeschooling parents. Now, depending on where you live, you may be surrounded with a lot of homeschoolers, or you may feel kind of, on your own, on an island. But I think it's very important to find some other homeschoolers, even if you have to do it remotely. We're out here. I mean, you can see, you contact us, leave a question below, and we will do our best to respond to that. But I think it's really important to connect with other homeschooling parents, find out what they're doing. Not that you want to necessarily copy them, but it can really be comforting to help get an idea of what their journey has looked like. And then, especially if you have children in the same age range or grade range or needs, they may have special needs, to find other moms, dads, homeschoolers that are dealing with those issues and consult with them.
And I think often if you attend a church, ask in your church. I think you'll be surprised. You may think there's no one else around you homeschooling, but once you put the idea out there and start asking who homeschool, you will be so amazed at how many families really do homeschool.
Absolutely, that was my story. I knew one homeschooling family, so I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But in my church, as soon as I decided to homeschool and I entered that world, I discovered that all of these people around me that I already knew on one level or another homeschooled, and I had no idea because I wasn't part of that world. So that is absolutely true.
I know for us, when we started our 4-H group, we had a couple of the kids in our co-op that were homeschooled, but as other kids were signing up in the county, majority of the kids in my homeschool group, or in my 4-H group, homeschool. So it was people I didn't even know that we've now met that also homeschool, so it's
Right.
nice to meet other
Yeah,
people.
it's a whole world, and it's an entire community, and you just put the questions out there, start, asking around, and you'll definitely find some people in your circles who might surprise you.
I think number 3 is attend a homeschool convention. Boy, homeschool conventions are fun, but they can be
are.
overwhelming.
Yes.
So if it's your first year, I would find maybe your local homeschool convention.
Completely
It's
agree.
probably not as large, but chances are your state hosts a homeschool convention yearly as well. The first couple years, I know I attended our local homeschool convention, which was kind of small. And once I kind of got my feet wet, I was ready to go to the big one. And the big one is fun. I can't tell you anything that is more fun than to go to a homeschool convention that has hundreds of vendors of all kinds of curriculum and activities and things that you can do as a homeschooler. It's one of the things I look forward to this year.
It is, and that's one of the things that I did early on was I attended my local convention. I completely agree with Julia because the larger ones, the state-run ones, can be completely overwhelming. And here's a tip: take your children.
Yes.
Because what I did, I didn't have any clue what kind of math curriculum would appeal to my son. So he went through the booths with me, and he was able to actually, sit down at the computer and try out teaching textbooks. He was actually able to go to Math UC and try the manipulatives and horizons and see the different ones, and that helped me tremendously to choose a math curriculum that appealed to him. So take your children, let them peruse the booths with you, and that will help you tremendously. And another thing, just go with the thought in mind that it can be very overwhelming. There is a lot to choose from, and you do not have to make any decisions right then and there. Just see what's available. Like I said, take your children, and then consult with other homeschoolers to get some feedback on what they think about particular curriculum choices.
Well, one of the things I would suggest, which is what I do, is I get a list of the vendors. Because if there's 200-300 vendors, I don't necessarily need to see every vendor. So before I go, I get a list of the vendors and I research them online. And if it's something that I know I'm not interested in or it doesn't pertain to the age of my children, I cross them off. And so then I know that I'm not going to spend my time there. And so usually the first day I go and I go through the whole hall and I just kind of look at everything, I pick up the brochures, and then I take it back to the room and we look over everything. And we say, okay, what might be interesting? And then we can go back the next day and target those things that we think might be interesting for us. So you have to kind of not give into the temptation to buy everything
Yes.
you see, because even though it might look really cool to you as a mom, your kids may have no interest in it at all. And that is one of the things I've learned, is to have their feedback and to go prepared, go to look at the things that I think might be interesting and to already know what's not going to be interesting.
Right, great point. To be able to look at the schedule ahead of time, not just the exhibitors, but also the speakers, because at each of these conferences, they have tremendous speakers that you can learn from. So be sure to stop and listen to those as well.
Absolutely.
All right, good. So let's see. Number 4, find a co-op in your area and visit. And there's probably several. In most areas, there probably are several to choose from, unless you really live out in the boonies somewhere. But visit them and then choose one. I joined a co-op immediately because, like I said, when I started out, I knew one family. And then once I joined the co-op, I discovered I knew a bunch of people in there already. I just didn't know them in that world. But joining a co-op can really help to open up an entire world to you rather than feeling like you are so isolated.
Absolutely. I know for us, the co-op that we're part of was already meeting in our church. So it was really easy for us. But even when we first started attending, it was kind of overwhelming because we have so many families. And so depending on your personality and your children's personality, you may want to find a co-op that just meets like once a month and does park days. It just depends on the age of your children, but there's a co-op out there that's going to fit the needs for all your children.
Yeah, and one thing I did not realize early on about a co-op is there are several co-ops that are very eclectic. They might just meet to go to do classes, like the one Julie and I are part of. They do have classes, and those classes do change from time to time. There are quite a variety of different things to choose from. There's co-ops that just meet to go to the park and have lunch together and get out. Then there's co-ops that follow a strict curriculum choice, say like a Charlotte Mason. So you might want to visit around a couple different co-ops and see what fits with your, your philosophy and your agenda and what you want to do as far as a journey.
Absolutely. All right. Assess your child's needs and learning styles. This can be one of the most challenging things starting out when you're homeschooling, and depending on why you're homeschooling. If you're homeschooling because you just want your children at home and you want them to have a Christian foundation, then you have a lot of options out there for you. But if you brought your child home from school because they've had some learning disabilities or some learning challenges in school, then you have to really zero in on what it is your child needs, what works for them. I know for us, I found out very quickly because my children love to be on the computer. My husband has had them on computers since they were babies. That workbooks wasn't for them. Their minds were already trained to being on the computer and to doing something that's going to be at that pace. So workbooks to them were boring. It was monotonous, and it was like pulling teeth to get them to finish it. So it took us a couple of different curriculums to try out before we found the one that really works, and they really like it. And it keeps them challenged, and it keeps them motivated, and it doesn't make doing schoolwork so daunting every day.
And that's what I love about homeschooling, is we have the freedom to be creative and to change something that's not working. Julia said it, she tried several different curriculums until she found the one that worked. And we've done the same thing. We've kind of pulled from various different sources, some of math, some we chose the right curriculum right from the get-go, but in other areas, spelling, English, not so much. We've had to try different things. And for my son, as we discussed on episode 1, he did have some learning challenges and behavior challenges in school, which is why I had to bring him home. And I've had to do a lot to really learn and understand him and learn what works well for him. And for him, it's hands-on, kinesthetic, getting involved type of curriculum. So one thing is absolutely certain, the journey of homeschooling is constantly changing. So there's one consistent, and that's it, that it will constantly be changing. And so you're going to change along with your children, along with their needs, and that's something we just have to commit to knowing.
Absolutely. And don't feel like there's not going to be something out there. What a lot of people don't understand is there is so many things to choose from for homeschooling. Yes. You will be so surprised at the different types of curriculum and the way they're structured and the learning style and how it is set up. You just don't realize all the creative ways to teach.
Yes, and it can be so much fun once you finally stumble on those programs. All right, so the last one we have here, and these are no means in, concrete order. You can do them all at the same time if you choose to, but we felt that these were the most important. The last one we have today is to assess your teaching style and philosophy. And I'll have to say, this is not something I did. This is not something I knew to do, because there are different teaching styles, different philosophies. We mentioned a couple, Charlotte Mason, we're teaching textbooks.
We switched on Schoolhouse.
Hands-on, manipulative type stuff, workbook types of things. You're going to have to figure out what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your child, and you might decide that you are very eclectic. Many of us are. We do a mixture, do some on the computer, some in workbooks, some hands-on, a variety of different things. But others are, 100% Charlotte Mason style. So you can Google, homeschooling curriculum styles, and teaching styles and that type of thing. And again, we'll leave some links below in the comment area to help you facilitate that research for yourself. But that's not something I did early on, and I discovered it a little bit later.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that you have to realize, especially if homeschooling is brand new to you, brand new to your children, is that for me, I had to unschool myself. I had to get out of the thought process that I had to be doing schoolwork from this time to this time. We had to cover this subject, this subject, this subject. all of this had to be done in a strategic, routine, very restricted way. And
Right.
that's not what homeschooling is
Right.
about. Homeschooling is about having the freedom to teach your children based on what is enjoyable to them. If you decide to go outside and look at the leaves on the tree and talk about how the roots in that tree cause that tree to grow and how they get fed, if that is how your child learns and that's what's exciting, that's what you have the freedom to do. You don't have to be sitting at a desk
Right.
all day doing workbooks and stuff. There's so many creative ways. To us, field trips are a way
Yes.
to learn. For us, field trip is a school day. To be able to go somewhere and talk about something and then bring that back home. There's just so many ways. So don't feel like you have to do homeschooling the way school does schooling, because you don't.
Exactly, and it's funny because that's exactly what I did in the beginning.
Absolutely.
I brought my son home and I set up our little room to almost look like a classroom, you know, with some of the similar things on the wall, the calendars and various different things, and a nice little desk. And that might work for some people, but pretty soon we found ourselves claustrophobic and feeling
Yep.
extremely bored in that space. And now we are so much more flexible. We've actually moved our primary space every single year. And the freedom of homeschooling is unmatched. It is such a wonderful freedom for yourself as well as for your child and their education. But like she said, field trips are wonderful education opportunities. And sometimes you might just work really hard one day because you guys are really in the mood, and then take the next day and maybe do one or two subjects.
Yep.
You can change it however you feel.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be the same every single day, and that's the beauty of it, the freedom of it.
Absolutely.
So, well, that's episode 2. We hope that these steps were helpful to you. So, like I said earlier, if you have a comment or a question, please put it in the box below, and we will see you on episode number 3.